Okay. Hi, how are you? Hi. Hi. Thanks very much.
I just want the clip right there.
So are we good to go?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
start
great.
whenever you want. We'll start the timer when you start.
All right, well, thanks very much for joining us. We've come up with a solution to the question that was asked. Our solution is GoTech, and we're going to be focusing on reducing energy demand in the developing world.
All right, so we're going to start off with why we can't completely replace hydrocarbons. Just some quick figures here. Gasoline, for every gallon that you consume, produces 37 kilowatt hours of energy. Compared to solar, for every meter squared day, you only produce 1 kilowatt hour of energy. So just to put that into perspective, if we were to power a Boeing 747 jet on solar energy, it would take 125 acres of solar power charging for an entire day just to make that average trip.
So when we talk about energy systems, there's something that we call the asymmetrical principle. And basically, because of energy losses in production and transmission, we lose most of the energy that's produced out of any unit of fuel. So for instance, for 100 units of energy content in coal that you put into a coal-fired power plant, you lose so much energy that the amount of energy that's actually used to power your incandescent light is about 2 units. And so for every 1 unit of energy you save at the bulb, you're actually saving 50 units of energy or potential energy in the coal. So by reducing the burden of energy on the demand side, we significantly reduce the consumption of energy on the supply side.
So what does GoTech stand for? Global Organization for Transfer of Technology, Energy Systems, and Capital. As you can see, our main focus is to deploy our new technologies into developing worlds and subsidize those that are very efficient.
All right, so just to give you an example of how we want to skip inefficient steps here, when India was in its development stage, it skipped the infrastructure of landlines directly, and it went right to cell phones. So we want to apply the same principle here, and just skip those inefficient steps of using inefficient technology and go right to the efficient technology because it's there already.
So the way we're going to fund these transfers of technologies, we're going to use a number of different methods. The biggest one that we're going to use at the start is the Clean Development Mechanism by the UN. And that's, as most of you all know, gives certified emission reduction credits for emissions in developing nations. We're also going to approach Annex 1 country companies to invest in our projects, and their return is going to be these certified emission reduction certificates. We're also going to look at the Green Climate Fund, which is another UN initiative. We're obviously going to try and work with local banks and, of course, local government programs.
All right, so just a statistic here. Lighting accounts for 19% of electricity used worldwide. I found this absolutely shocking. But incandescent bulbs still make up 50 to 70% of production worldwide. So why are we using this old, inefficient technology when there are much better, much greener technologies out there? So our pilot project. Our end goal is the worldwide replacement of all incandescent bulbs with LED bulbs because they're so much more efficient. We also want to replace fluorescent light bulbs because of the mercury in them, and as well, they're not as efficient as LED bulbs. So what we're going to start with in our pilot project is Indonesia and India. It's going to be a $700 million cost to get the bulb replacement program going, but the credits we expect to get from this are valued at $1.2 billion. Now, at the end of 5 years of this project, we're expecting a total reduction of 50 megatons per year in carbon dioxide emissions.
So I think it's very important that we look at trends in energy use. There's a very high correlation between GDP and energy use. So you can see, this is for the US. As GDP increases, there's equivalent steps in the increase of the amount of energy used per person. Now, when you look at countries like India and other non-OECD countries like Indonesia, currently they're at a very, very low level. But with very high projected growth rates of GDP, it's expected that their energy consumption per person is going to increase dramatically. And by using projects like these, which will increase energy efficiency, we hope to slow down the rate of growth of energy use per person.
So why are LEDs so good? Let's take a comparison for incandescent lights, for example. The advantages for incandescent light, obviously they are a lot cheaper. However, they're very, very, very inefficient. And in places like Indonesia and India, it's very hot there. And all this extra heat is going to increase costs for aircon and fans and whatnot, so it actually drives up electricity.
So just to give you a quick statistic, actually 6% of total electricity consumed in India is to power fans, electric fans. And we can assume that a lot of this fan power is going to reduce heat that's being created by incandescent bulbs in the households.
So what are the advantages to LED then? They are less greenhouse gas emissions. The main disadvantages are they are a little bit more expensive for upfront costs, especially in smaller numbers.
All right, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about India. So right now, India has a program that by 2012, they want to phase out 400 million incandescent bulbs and replace them with fluorescents. But they're not accounting for 300 million other incandescent bulbs that are still out there using inefficient electricity. So in India, 17% of their electricity demand comes from lighting for 1.25 billion people. Now because India is 82% coal powered for their electricity, they're emitting 0.9 kilograms of carbon dioxide for every single kilowatt hour that they use in energy. So using those incandescent bulbs is emitting a lot of greenhouse gas that doesn't need to be emitted.
So as Sam spoke to earlier, Indonesia is the other country that we are focusing on. Why is this? Because the population, although it's a little bit smaller than India, 230 million people, there's still 350 million incandescent lamps that need to be replaced. So power standpoint, it's very similar to India, and it seems like a no-brainer.
So the very first step in our pilot project is going to be the manufacture of these 650 million LED lights that we want to produce. Ideally, we want to work with local governments in order to build out or refit existing manufacturers with the capacity to build all these LED bulbs over our 5-year rollout. We think this is great because we're going to create jobs in India and Indonesia. We're also going to reduce transportation costs. However, we understand that we may not be able to build the capacity as quickly as we'd like to, so we're going to make up the difference from Chinese manufacturers.
All right, so this LED bulb right here is the one that's going to light the way to India and Indonesia's greener future. It's a high output 7-watt LED bulb, and this is capable of replacing almost every residential bulb that you can use. Right now, when we factor in economies of scale, they can be produced at around $1 a bulb, which is easily subsidizable by GoTech and the credits that we receive.
So how are we going to get these bulbs out there? Simple way is to have a trade-in program. We're going to have places like government agencies, schools, local community centers and whatnot that have these LED bulbs that you can just go in and trade your incandescent bulbs and just be done with it.
Allahu Akbar. Help save his creation by trading in your bulbs for LEDs. So it's a little drastic, but what I'm trying to get across is we need to encourage people to buy into our program. Because there is, even though there's no cost for the switch of the bulb, they still have the expense of they have to take out their incandescent bulbs, come into the schools and trade in their bulbs. So we need a way to get the message across to people that we have this program and it's running. And we have to do it in ways that are culturally connected. So for Indonesia, we thought this was a good example because it's a Muslim country and they're very religious there. This would be a way that we could encourage them to buy into our program. And obviously we would take similar steps for India as well.
So this is our timeline, what we expect to happen in the next 5 years. First of all, we're going to start this program in 2012, right now. And because of all the new distribution lines and whatnot, it's going to take about a year to actually launch and distribute these light bulbs. At the beginning, it's going to take a little bit more time to get these light bulbs out. However, as time goes on, it's going to be a little bit more efficient.
All right, so that's the end of our presentation about how we're going to light the way to a greener future. Just to summarize again, GoTech is about technology deployment. So we're going to subsidize these efficient technologies, skipping all those inefficiencies, going to developing worlds and allowing them to use those efficient technologies. In fact, in India and Indonesia, we're estimating an aggregate $2.8 billion in savings for the people. That's solely for the people and what they're going to save by transferring to LED bulbs completely free of charge. So that's the end of our presentation. Again, we're going to use technology deployment to light the way to a green future. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
So help me understand your financing model on this. Your credits, which would happen during the program, where is the upfront capital coming to kick this off?
Sure. So the upfront capital is going to come from these companies within Annex 1 countries, because basically for their $700 million investment, we're going to give them credits that are worth $1.2 billion over the life of the project. So they're getting a return on their investment.
So that's 1.2 billion over the life of the project.
Yes.
So what carbon price are you using?
$5.30 Canadian, which is, I can't remember the euro figure for CERs currently, but it's calculated from the current price of CERs in euros.
What are you going to do with the countries that aren't India and Indonesia?
After we have successfully implemented a few years of this program and other countries and other companies see that it's being implemented effectively, we would look at expanding to other countries as well.
And so when you're replacing the incandescent bulbs, all the people from General Electric and Philips aren't going to be too happy with you. How are you going to deal with that?
I mean, I think as we do our local partnerships as well, these companies are strong. They're multinationals. They're all over the world. So, I mean, they're going to have the opportunity to work locally in the countries to help refit the manufacturing facilities that are there to produce LED bulbs. And, I mean, this is the way of the future. You can't stop the replacement of incandescent bulbs. Many countries are already banning the sale of incandescents completely. So, I mean, these companies, I believe they already have plans to adapt to this change.
Can you take me, I just following up from my colleague's question, take me through the cash flow here in terms of, so I make the bulbs, LEDs, I put them out there, people come in, we trade them, and then there's some carbon credits that are involved with this. Okay, I didn't see kind of the carbon credits at $5 a ton to turn into 50 megatons and how the cash flow. Okay.
Yeah, so here we have the number of bulbs that we're replacing, along with the current, those figures that you saw for grams per kilowatt hour of CO2 emissions. Here's sort of our annual reduction in tons of carbon dioxide credits. Like the LED lights actually last a long time, but given the amount of time that's still available in the CDM, because it's due to expire in 2017 or 2018. And so we estimated 5 years, took the cost of a credit, worked out a PV at 5%.
So the people that get the credits are the coal plants. So your plan depends upon coal plants to... No,
so actually the way the credits are distributed is to whoever runs the program. So say our investor is Cenovus, well, which it wouldn't be, it would be a European country most likely. But let's say it's Cenovus. So Cenovus invests the money, and then they would actually get the carbon emission reduction or certified emission reduction credits that they could then sell on the carbon market or use it to offset whatever overages they have.
That's all the time we have for questions?
I hope I was able to answer your question.
Well, we were getting.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.